What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some patch highlights for Starfield as it recently got, yesterday from the time of this video to be specific, what I would consider its first major update since its launch. So I wanted to go over those and talk a little bit about them and how they affect the game, including a look at a couple of future features that are coming as well. But I want to kick this particular video off by saying that while this is the first major update, and it does do a lot of great things for the game, it also doesn't, I think, fix the more substantial problems either, like exploration being a bit lackluster, for instance. I still want to talk about and cover these updates as they happen, much in a similar manner to what I did for Cyberpunk, as it continually improved through patches as well. Though I enjoyed Starfield quite a bit, and I've been very on the record about that. I also wanted to mention right here at the beginning that I'm bringing you some of the footage of this patch via its beta over on Steam, and that this patch itself is actually launching in full on the 15th of May, I believe they have planned. So it looks like it's a big update and they wanted to give it a little room to breathe so they didn't introduce any more egregious bugs without having a chance to knock those out as well. So if you don't feel like playing on the beta branch, which is where I'm getting all this footage from, it should properly be out in a couple weeks. Now, let's get into it with what some of these changes have brought to the game, starting off with difficulty. This patch introduces modular difficulty to Starfield, an overall approach to difficulty that I personally enjoy very much, and I'm glad to see it making its way to other games and genres, and honestly at this point I would say it's getting relatively common to see studios do this. In the case of Starfield, though, what this means is that instead of just picking a generic difficulty level, we'll be able to pick and choose very specific things about the difficulty to either increase or decrease. So as you can see on screen here, we can change things like the damage enemies do in combat, the damage we do in combat, the same thing for ships. You can decide whether or not ammo has any weight. You can decide what your carry capacity looks like, where you can access your cargo bay of your ship from, how useful healing and eating and sleeping is, and as a bit of a slight aside, they somewhat introduced, I would say, an almost soft survival mode here, where now that you can access the food and sleep difficulty modifiers, you can have them convey bonuses if you haven't ate or drank in a while, so that's a thing. But as you can see, this affects a whole host of things. But what I really liked is if you make the game harder for yourself, you'll actually be increasing the amount of experience your character gets, which is a nice touch that I feel is a bit of a throwback to Bethesda's much older titles like, say, Daggerfall. That's far from the only feature we have to talk about, however. Another big update is that now we can decorate our ship interiors. Starfield already had an outpost system where you could build, of course, outposts on various planets you might land on, and now we can fully customize the inside of our ship as well as fully customizing it via its shipbuilder mechanics. Now, we can do this with your current ship, or you can buy now customizable bays that come with either a preset generalized idea of what the inside of it looks like, or a just straight up empty bay that you can completely customize. Either way though, if you go aboard your ship, activate your scanner and enter build mode, you'll be able to decorate. Now if you want to start with a completely fresh slate, you can go to any ship services technician, navigate to the appropriate bay you want, and then items with the extra variants to choose from, such as a completely empty version of it, will be noted by the items that have those little hash marks on the bottom of their position in the menu, and then you can grab an empty one. I thought this was neat. I think the shipbuilding itself was already a really great feature. And in fact, I would go so far as to say it's probably one aspect of Starfield that wasn't very divisive at all. I would say most people really enjoyed that part of it. So to see it get some more love is really cool as well. We're not done yet though. Next we have a few different, I would say, quality of life features, though there are two in particular I want to point people towards, starting with the maps of the game. So maps on launch and up to this point really have been pretty underwhelming. It was just very flat. It was hard to tell anything in relation to verticality or other terrain features, and because of that, the map was very close to useless, if we're being honest. Now, they've completely revamped this, with the surface maps of the game now providing you a very true-to-form representation of what is actually going on in the area that you are in, and thus it'll be easier to navigate and find things, and it also does a great job of showing the verticality of any given open area. So a welcome change for sure. Another bit of quality of life, however, is that now you can decide where you want the camera to be during dialogue. So the default is that it zooms in on their face, but now with this patch you can go to the accessibility options menu and select the dialogue face camera off, so you can have a conversation with NPCs where it's just kind of over the shoulder and doesn't force you into that dialogue perspective. And what I like here is that they simply made it a choice. You can pick whichever one feels comfortable enough for you. And then last but not least for these highlights, the other thing I wanted to mention is that they've made some adjustments to traits and appearance via the New Game Plus cycle. Now, small spoilers for the game on this one, specifically in relation to how New Game Plus works. So if that's of importance to you, maybe don't listen to this part. But otherwise, if you're entering New Game Plus and Starfield, with this patch, you'll now have the option to change your appearance or your selected traits at the same time. This is important specifically for the traits more so than the appearance, but the appearance itself is also a nice touch here, I guess. But traits, if you've forgotten or are simply unaware, are things that define your character and have unique gameplay elements, such as giving your character a mortgage, having them being followed around by an adoring fan, or the addition of their parents in-game, which has all sorts of implications. And if you've ever wanted to play around with more of those, for instance, seeing the special dialogue options available to the faction or religious traits, this is a convenient way to do that and swap them out if you happen to be playing the game multiple times, as this will allow you to both see that content with your established character and thus not have to start completely over just to see a bit of content specific to traits. So, truth be told, I don't expect that change to be super impactful for a lot of people, but for someone like myself who plays through a game many times over, that's a great change and I'm happy to see it. Now, beyond that, this patch, as with most patches ever, really also comes with a host of fixes and improvements for various other small issues, alongside some stability and performance improvements. But we're not done there, because in addition to everything I've just gone over, Bethesda also released a couple videos and a small statement talking about where they're going from here, where they showed off a little bit of two particular features. That is to say, we are going to be getting land vehicles for you to drive around on the surface of planets, which is a no-brainer. Very glad to see that that is coming, but that is a confirmed thing that will be happening in the future, and I'm curious if they'll release that standalone or if it will be added to the game at the same time as the Shattered Space DLC, which is set to release this fall sometime. But another thing they wanted to talk about for the future in this particular regard is the official mod support for the game. So they stated that they have their version of the mod tools in the hands of verified creators, and that's their words. And in this particular case, I would imagine that they're probably referring to mod creators that have worked on official Creation Club content for Fallout 4 and Skyrim, but that is just a guess on my part. I'm not exactly sure who they're talking about here, and I'd be surprised if there weren't NDAs involved, to be frank. But once that testing process with those people has been done, that's when they're planning on releasing those mod tools. But in their own words again, when that happens is largely down to how well that goes, as they plan on incorporating feedback and adjusting anything they can based on that experience. But in any event, it's in progress, they've got it in people's hands, so theoretically shouldn't be much longer, but we'll see how it pans out. Now that's pretty much going to do it for this particular video. And to wrap it up and put my own thoughts on it, overall, I would say this is a great patch. I think it does a lot of good things for the game, and I imagine will simply act as a stepping stone to larger updates in the future, such as the land vehicles or the upcoming DLC. And I imagine that DLC in particular will be their actual chance to recapture people's interest here, if at all. And I'm especially keen for myself to see what they do in regards to making exploration more interesting, if they even attempt to do so at all. Because that's my biggest gripe with the game personally, was just that exploring a lot of these planets and things just, simply wasn't fun. There wasn't anything to do. And that's personally the issue I would like to see them tackle the most. But in the meantime, patches like this are great. I'm happy to see that they've been listening to what people had to say, and I will be covering more of these updates and the Shattered Space DLC when those things happen. So if you're interested in hearing about any of that, definitely subscribe and stick around. But that's pretty much going to do it for today. So with that in mind, I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And do let me know how you feel about all this down in the comment section below. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.